Welcome to Behind the Audition podcast with your host, Curt Hilton. Listen in on interviews with voiceovers, filmmakers, producers, animators, and much more. Curt, a voice actor himself, will give insider tips to the business, talk with guests about how they got into the business, and be sure to stay tuned to the end of the podcast when he challenges his guests with a pop-up audition. Now it's time for Behind the Audition podcast. Here's Curt Hilton.
Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Audition podcast. On this episode, I got to speak to the amazing voice actor, Aaron Bradley. Aaron and I talked about his journey from radio jock to professional full-time voiceover. We talked about marketing tips to get more business from one social media platform so you don't waste so much valuable time on too many of them. Aaron told me how to get scripts for demos and how a class he offers can up your voiceover skills. We talked about so much more, so sit back and enjoy another episode of Behind the Audition podcast. And coming on the show today, I'm super excited. Me and this individual were talking on social media, I guess you'd say LinkedIn and email and everything. You have heard this voiceover's voice on Stephen Colbert, 2020, Airbnb, Discovery Channel, National Geographic, video games, and a lot of TV affiliate work. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Aaron Bradley. How are you doing today?
Very good, man. Yeah, thank you. And as I always tell you, thanks for all you're doing for the voice community.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like I was telling you before the show, thank you so much for reaching out and telling me that. You know, it's always so good for those getting into the industry or who have been in the industry, polishing their craft, who reach out to me and say, you know, I love the show. Keep doing what you're doing. I had somebody, I listen to your show while walking my dogs every day. And I'm like, hey, whatever works, that's great to hear.
For me, it's the treadmill. There you go. You're my fitness partner.
Oh man, I appreciate it. You know, I listen to Mark Scott. I listen to the VO Padded Room. I listen to the social media marketing playbook. There's like so many different podcasts. Of course, Smartless, and I love the Pete and Sebastian show, stuff like all these podcasts. I mean, what would we do without them nowadays, right?
That's right, man. Yeah, not much.
So you got into this industry back in 1999. You know, when
right.
was it that you're like, you know what, this is what I'm going to do? What made you want to get into voice acting?
Yeah, so, in high school, we developed the school's morning announcements, and it was kind of the first ever, at least in our high school, closed circuit televised morning announcement where we had cameras and in a little studio, and then every classroom had a television in it. And, about 8 a.m., all the students in the high school would sort of watch the morning announcements, and I hosted the morning announcements, and it kind of caught on, and everybody said, "Oh, you're really good at this," and that put the bug sort of in my ear that this is something that I really kind of wanted to do. And then in college, got a talk radio show, Aaron in the Afternoon. And that caught on as well, and it really sort of developed the feeling in your gut that this is what you want to do, and that's how it all started for me. So yeah.
So back in '99, that's when radio was the afternoons, and you tried recording your favorite show, your favorite song, and you'd be like, "Hey DJ, be quiet! I'm trying to tape my show." Remember that back, or trying to tape my favorite song. But
right.
Radio DJs would be at the nightclubs. I used to DJ back in the nightclubs. The radio guys would be at the nightclubs, promoing, "Come on down, we have so and so." I mean, that was like the coolest time in radio back in the early '90s and late '90s, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and you had a little more freedom back then to kind of say what you want, and we would get people to call in, have a little controversy, a little fun with it. But yeah, it caught on, and it started ranking. I grew up in Philadelphia, so the show started ranking in the Philadelphia Arbitron numbers, and that sort of paved the path for commercial radio. The Philadelphia Inquirer heard the show, and they saw that it was catching on, and I was 19 at the time. And that they did a little feature story on me, and that opened the door into commercial radio. And then started doing commercial radio in Atlantic City, and then eventually moved over as a weekend jock into Philadelphia.
Wow.
For a talk station, WWDB, out there.
Nice.
In Bala Cynwyd. So yeah, it caught on, and that was sort of the beginning of my broadcasting career on a paid basis. And then at the time, we were doing commercials and cutting spots for the radio station, and that was basically a voiceover. So we sort of we did a lot of that, and then that sort of turned into trying to get a voiceover demo together
Right.
of just the spots. I just edited, all the little spots together and sought out some regional talent
Hmm.
agents, and that's how it all began in voiceover. So it caught on, man.
So I'm thinking about this. So when I started doing commercials back in 2001, I don't know if you're in a big market. So my market was like way small market when I first started. So did you guys get paid extra to do those ads as radio jocks?
Yeah, if you did them within the station, you didn't get paid extra. If you did it sort of outside, like if you cut it for a commercial client, they
Okay.
could pay you like $300 or something, to cut it. But generally, I mean, if it's an assignment within the station, hey, voice this, you're doing it for free. So
So
yeah.
do they still do that? Because it's been forever. Do they still do the radio? Do you know if the radio guys get paid? So if they're doing like an afternoon show and they have to do a radio spot for, you know, Katie's something, whatever, and do they get paid for those spots?
It depends. If it's a jock that's sort of signed on to represent that brand or that store, they'll get
Hmm.
paid. But if it's like a production director, at the station, they're not going to get paid extra to do it.
Wow.
So
So
yeah.
you went from radio to voice acting. What do you remember what your first project was? Like something you're like, I'm done with radio. This is my first big project. Do you remember what that was?
Yeah, I did a spot. In fact, I started the very first, paid spots that I did were PSAs, actually,
Wow. Okay.
public service announcements.
Yeah.
And I did one for New Jersey's carpooling, agency, where they organize, carpooling and getting to work using carpool. So that was my very first spot. It was a PSA,
Oh my
and
gosh, I love those.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I did one for TV, and those were so cool that it was like, here's what's going on. Those were so cool. Like to hear your voice, like, hey, that's me.
yeah, yeah.
So,
No, it grew. Yeah.
I think one thing I like about how you market, and I don't know if I didn't see it, but you're like on LinkedIn, and that's it, right? You're not really on Instagram or any other social media platforms. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in, direct marketing. So I work off a lot of databases,
Right.
and I have a radio database and a television database, and then I do LinkedIn, as my primary social media. But yeah, I'm not on Instagram or any of the other ones.
And how, I mean, I'm not, digging at you or anything like, how does that work? I mean, because, some people say you should be on the, on these 2 3 platforms, because if you're not being seen, you're not being heard. How is that so successful for you then? And how could that be successful for us? Because I can tell you sometimes I would love to get off 2 other social media platforms, focus on LinkedIn and one, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of content to worry about. How could we do that? And how could we become more successful not being on so many platforms?
Yeah, so let me tell you, I recently, just within the last 3 weeks, made a news talk radio imaging demo with sort of the samples to target radio stations to become sort of the top of the hour voice of radio stations. And when I posted that demo to LinkedIn, one of the things that I made sure I really did was hashtag ownership groups. So we're talking about like Cumulus, or we're talking about iHeart, media, and some of the others, Town Square Media, where they own 100+ radio stations. So when I posted the demo to LinkedIn, I hashtagged the ownership groups, and that's how you get seen through the owners of these radio stations. And the same is true
Wow.
for television. You're hashtagging ownership groups, and you're making sure, that you're not just hashtagging voiceover.
Yeah.
That goes out to peers, and that's good
Mhm.
if you're teaching a class. I'm teaching a class, which we'll talk about. But when you're targeting those radio stations, TV stations, it's important to hashtag the ownership groups, and it's worked. It's worked for me as far as the LinkedIn social media marketing.
That's genius because I was talking to Mike Hathcote and I have talked to Bill DeWeese, one of the guys you partnered with.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a fellow voice actor. I said, you know what? I've changed my whole social media marketing scheme. I don't post anything personal really anymore. I don't really follow. The only people I follow in the voiceover industry is on my podcast platform, or my voice over business, on some aspect. But I find that what Bill said and what Mike said, put yourself out in the market and let the market find you, find your niche, find your style, and really build your business. And it has helped
probably the last 60 days. And it's just so great to hear, your guys' advice. So you don't always have to be on social media because it's a black hole out there. It's just, you can be stuck on there for hours.
Yeah, for hours and hours. And it's just short and to the point. And for what I always say, anytime you have a demo or a sample of your work, that's really the most important, to get that out on social media, not just, a photo or a logo or, something about yourself. Try to get the demo so somebody can actually hear you. The more, this is one of the things that we're always taught in voiceover. It's getting you heard, or getting you seen, more likely getting you heard by a hiring manager. So the way to do that is get your demo out there, and that's how it works.
I
So
love that. And so do you put most of the content that you get paid for, or do you create like spec ads to kind of show what you can do, that, you can write copy? Do you make a lot of like spec demos to put on LinkedIn, or do
no,
you?
I haven't done all the work that I posted is either real work that I
Mhm.
booked, or a demo that I had a demo producer make for me.
Nice.
So
What
yeah.
would you say to those new to the industry who don't, who haven't had the opportunity to, get hired for affiliates like yourself or platforms? Where could they get the scripts? Where would you recommend them get scripts from?
Yeah, iSpot.tv is really good because it has a lot of commercials that aired, and a lot of promos that aired. They're real commercials and real promos, and you can sort of transcribe the commercial or the promo spot to devise your own copy, and then practice off of that, and practice, and maybe even get a little bit of coaching. And then when you feel ready with that, you can sort of make a DIY demo with those. And eventually, if you were able to hire a demo producer to get your
Mhm.
demos done professionally, they provide you with the copy. That's one of the things that it's included with the professional demo.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some gaming work you've done. There's a big difference between doing radio ads, commercials, and promo, I guess you'd say. What would you say to those new to the industry, the gaming world? How cool is it, or is it hard, or is it something you should really think about before doing it?
Yeah, it's actually quite difficult. Again, 90% of what I do is television affiliate work. So
Hmm.
that's the bulk of my day is spent,
Hmm.
voicing the local news promos
Hmm.
that you hear. So I've only done a little bit of the gaming, Rockstar Games and some of the big
Yeah.
owners. Same deal,
Yeah.
it's ownership groups, and finding out how to target ownership groups, and find out the voiceover casting director within the ownership group. And speaking of LinkedIn, all of these casting, you could type in, voice casting director Rockstar Games, and you'll get, I think her name is Andrea
Hmm.
Toyas, who, she's the casting director for one of the big ones. There's Blizzard Entertainment, but finding the casting director for the ownership group of these video games is how you sort of break into it. LinkedIn, and we always look at these Japanese games
Hmm.
that are out
Hmm.
there,
Hmm.
and not just Japanese, but a lot of them come from Asia. They're small scale video games,
Hmm.
and finding ways to even reach small scale video games just to start, and maybe build a demo up, just trying to get a hold of those smaller game developers. You don't have to start big.
Hmm.
Look into those smaller games. There's so many games, mobile games, and they all need voices.
Hmm.
That's the interesting thing about it. I think it's one of the largest areas of voiceover by a huge amount, voiceover for video games. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
it's
awesome.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I fortunately I've had the opportunity to get on a couple rosters where they, if they have a game coming out, they'll send like a bulk of people that are on a roster, some auditions, and then okay, you could, they kind of give you what the character is going to look like, what they're going to sound like, and everything. As far as you're talking LinkedIn, what how would you approach those casting directors on LinkedIn so you don't sound like you're salesy or anything like that? How would you introduce yourself and to get your foot in the door, I should say?
Yeah. Great. You asked the best questions, man. This is the Barbara Waters.
My wife was in TV for
That's
so
right.
long, so it's like, just marinating on my brain here. I
No,
appreciate it.
excellent. No, it's a really great question. It's the same thing, it's getting yourself heard by the hiring manager. So if you're going to approach, it's not rocket science. If you're going to approach the voice casting director for, say, Blizzard, or Rockstar Games, or even those smaller game manufacturers, make sure you have a professional demo
Okay.
for video game work. It's
Right.
important to do that because, and you include that demo in your little message. There's LinkedIn Premium, which you don't necessarily need,
Mm-hmm.
but when you connect with these, casting directors for video games, you have the opportunity to sort of write that little, note when you connect, and you could provide a YouTube link to your demo in that little note. And that's a great beginning, and keep at it. They're probably not going to answer you the first time, but keep
Right.
at it every couple of months, so you don't seem desperate, or so you don't get annoying. But you have to keep at it. It's consistency, and it's getting that right message across, where
Mm-hmm.
the message shows you've got the studio, the experience, the coaching, the professional demo, and then just timing is everything. So you have to really. I always tell students, time, tenacity, and talent, the 3 T's.
I love
And
it.
if you just sort of practice those, that's a great way to keep yourself in the game, so to speak.
I love it. So we'll move along to the affiliate work you do. I love like the imaging news affiliate work that things like you do. You said 90% of your work. When I watch the news, I always listen to the guy coming up at 10, or stay tuned for the so and so news. You know what I mean? Like you always love to hear their voice. And sometimes you'll kind of like, I remember when I was in St. Louis, I remember the guy that did our Channel 5 in St. Louis. He was the same voice actor, Jerry Springer.
Right?
Yes.
That's right. Yep.
And that was back in the, late 90s. And I actually reached out to him. I called him. This was like when, Google and Yahoo just came out, and he picked up the phone, and we talked, and he was like the coolest guy. How did you get into that? Because that is probably one of the hardest industries to get into, correct?
Yeah, it's one of them. I was a television news. So after I was in radio, I come from a background in television news. I interned with CBS, and through CBS, the internship was able to get started in a small market, working in television news. And then when you work in a small market, you compile all your work, and you build a demo of your work in a small market, and you send that out to larger markets. And then I was able to sort of climb the ladder in
Mm-hmm.
television news, which paved the way, for affiliate work, because
Mm-hmm.
you're actually on air, and you hear these people every single day introducing you.
Mm-hmm.
And I became friends with one of the creative services directors at the television station that I was working at, and he sort of showed me how this works. They're back in that day, it was ISDN. They would call in, they would voice it through
Yeah.
ISDN, and it just fascinated me, and I started sort of telling myself, this is something that I really want to be able to do, and made a goal to really do this. So it worked out, and it's hard to do early on. We teach a TV affiliate boot camp, Bill DeWeese and myself,
Yeah.
and the boot camp is designed to work off of a master database.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a database that was compiled. A friend of mine actually works with the Nielsen Corporation, and Nielsen takes the ratings of the TV stations, and they've got a directory of all the hiring managers for all the TV stations in the country, which
Mm-hmm.
is priceless. So it's got the creative services director, who is the initial hiring manager, the general manager, who sort of has to give the gold seal, the star, the
Mm-hmm.
gold star before you are hired. And we have that database. So we teach students, and this is how I built my TV affiliate business, off that database early on, targeting these people, direct email marketing. And with this program we teach, we really emphasize the ways that you can target television stations yourself, sending the email to the hiring manager with your demos, and staying top of mind awareness.
Nice.
And that's how you can build it yourself. Once you get a couple of clients, once you get a couple of TV stations, you then can approach a talent agent, and the agent then markets you under their letterhead. So they're sending you out to all the markets in the country, with the agent's letterhead. So it's a little more prestigious.
Yeah.
The agent does get a cut. So if you can get some of these on your own, more power to you.
Right.
So, yeah.
So are these like, because I've never done any of that imaging before, but is it like you contact the news director or you contact the station manager? Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, so you don't ever do a news director. The creative services director
Hmm.
is we call it the CSD,
Right.
is the hiring manager for a television station for voiceover. So
Okay.
what they do is their job is to sort of brand the overall feel of the TV station. Maybe they want a female voice.
Right.
Maybe they want an African American voice.
Right.
Maybe they want sort of a more hard hitting sound. But they
Right.
come up with the brand, and that is oftentimes the slogan, working for you, or
Yeah.
eyewitness news, or action news, and they sort of have the feel of the station, and that determines how the voiceover is going to sound and how their spots and their promos sound.
Right.
So you've got to target that person, and then they have a boss, which is the general manager, and the general manager sort of has to sort of A-OK
Yeah.
if they want to hire you. So that's in essence, that's the small, simplified way to begin the process.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense because now I think about when we were in the Lincoln, Nebraska market, the guy at the TV station was in creative services, and he did all the voice work, I believe, at the time. Maybe it was a small, Lincoln, Nebraska was a smaller market, so I'm sure
Sure.
that's probably why. So you and Bill, where could they go to get a hold of you guys for this program?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that we're doing. We just last year we did an 8-week, really intense. We call it the boot camp, the TV affiliate boot camp, and it was 8 weeks of intensive training, sort of a master class.
Mhm.
And what we did is every week we had a group of people. I think we had 22 students go through the program already. 2 of those have already gotten contracts, so it's worked out. And we met every week, and then we had a question and answer session, and it turned into something really special. So what we've done is we've put it together again for this year, and we're going to do a 4-week version of it, which is going to cost quite a bit less. And then the students will have a chance to upgrade into the 8-week version, where they get the master database, and then they get a professionally produced television affiliate demo as part of the program. So you need those things to succeed. Obviously, you need the database and you need the demo. That's part of the upgrade into the 8-week course. But the 4-week course is what we would initially start off offering for 2022.
Nice.
And we're putting a waiting list together now for the class. We do require you need a home studio. We prefer you've been in the business around 2 years. You've had some coaching. You're not green, and you're not brand new to the business.
Right.
If you meet that criteria, you can email me directly. It's Aaron at aaronvo.com. Aaron, AARON, at aaronvo.com. Email me directly, and I'll put you on the waiting list myself.
Nice.
For the 4-week class, which is the lower price class that we're going to do in 2022. And then if you want to sort of get the training, today you and I talked about like the creative services director and the general manager. We put an hour-long webinar together, Bill and I, which has pretty much the basics of TV affiliate work. You can see that webinar and view that webinar at tvaffiliatebootcamp.com. It's
Nice.
free. There's no obligation. It's tvaffiliatebootcamp.com. That has the hour-long webinar on it. So that's sort of how you would go about sort of getting into this class.
Very nice. And so these TV affiliates jobs, is it like a 1-year contract, or is it just like depends? Like, does that go through like an ad agency? Is that depending, or if it goes through you personally?
Yeah, so I'm doing 12 stations now. So
Nice.
one of the things, yeah, so you get contracts generally for a year, and it's a 1-year contract. It's a legal agreement, so it's typed up. It's typed up by their legal department, and it's for the period of 1 year. You get a retainer every month, which is why a lot of the talk within voiceover is, hey, TV affiliate's great because
Yeah,
you're guaranteed, that income every month.
that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's that 1-year agreement. You put it together. It determines your rate. You get usually 3 weeks vacation, and they tell you how quick they want the promo sent back to them. My mornings are pretty much shot, with TV affiliate, turned around within an hour. So that's all in your legal agreement. They want it,
Oh,
yeah, they want it sent within usually an hour, hour
right.
and a half
Okay.
at most. So
Because you
yeah.
do hear people that do promo work, it's very time consuming. Sometimes they can get called late at night, they can get called in the morning, they can get called anytime, and you get to be ready to go. I've always questioned about with TV, you like I said, I'm looking at you doing Stephen Colbert 2020 and all that. How cool is that, hearing your voice like doing those shows and everything?
Oh, I mean, it's the honor of a lifetime. And then when your family, hears it, and they tell you, wow, that's my son, that's my son.
Yeah.
Your dad is, your dad and mom are your biggest cheerleaders at that
Yeah.
point. But yeah, and it reiterates, I think for years and years when we start in voiceover, a lot of us sort of need that pat on the back. You
Yeah.
oftentimes don't feel that maybe you're good enough or
Mhm.
you're talented enough. But when you start hearing, even if it's a small, a PSA
Yeah.
for carpooling,
Mhm.
even when you hear your voice, it's sort of the pat on the back that, hey, you can do this. You're good enough, and you're talented enough. So yeah, it's an honor. Anytime you hear your voice, small or large, it's an honor. So
That is awesome. Stefan Johnson and Donovan Cornetz, they were both on the show. I hear Donovan with the Today Show. I'll send him a message on Instagram. I'll see him on the Leith Auto here in town, or I'll see Stefan. I'm a big Carolina Hurricanes fan. I hear him doing Bally Sports. It's like all these people that have come so far in VO, and now you're hearing on national ads. That's so cool.
exactly.
So now we're gonna have some fun before we let you go. I am going to introduce you to the Behind the Audition Challenge. I wrote something fun for you, being that this is your line of work. So you got it there in your chat, and I guess read it like you would something coming up for the news.
Yeah, we'll do let's see here. Coming up tonight on Negative News 9, we will turn any positive news you hear into the most negative news you hear. I love it. Channel 21 News knows you love negative news. And remember, if it bleeds, it leads. Channel 21 News is there for you. There we go.
Oh my gosh. You know what I
I
love
love it.
about it? You added more like better information onto it. That's how talented you are. Before I
Oh,
let you go, I always ask a cliche question, and we're definitely going to have you back on, because I'm going to put that link on for some people that want to go to your guys' class.
uh,
There are people that get into this industry. One, they think they're going to be rich. Two, they want to be famous. Or three, they think it's just, I'm going to be ready in 2 weeks.
yeah.
What is some input to those getting into the industry they should know before they do this?
Yeah, and we always joke in voiceover, even if you're here in LA or you're in, Tennessee or you're wherever, we always say we're the D list, life on the D list. So you're never ever going to be famous,
Right.
but you're in a form of show business. So
Mm-hmm.
you do have some notoriety, especially if you're getting work. But the reality is, when you start, that shouldn't be your goal. And it's like when I started in TV news, my goal was never, oh, I want to work in TV because it's glamorous, or I'm going to get seen, or it's, there's that fame element to it. It was to inform people. That's why I was interested in it. It was just the ability to inform people and do it with a visual medium. And then voiceover is the same way. You're an actor, and when you can portray a message to touch somebody's heart,
Yeah.
maybe it's a feel good piece, or you're informing them, or you're trying to make them laugh, you're controlling a person's emotion, which,
Mm-hmm.
if you think about that, I mean, that's extremely powerful. Your
Absolutely.
voice is controlling an emotion. So if you learn that should be your focus, get the coaching, get the schooling, get the practice, so you can control emotions of your listener, and just always make a mental note. You're an actor. You're not famous. You're not any more than that. But if you look at it as your goal, control their emotion to get them to do something. That's, in a nutshell, that's the purpose of voiceover. So
I love it. I love it.
yeah.
It has been so great talking to you. Like I said, we'll have to do this more again.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, Aaron Bradley, thank you so much for being on Behind the Audition podcast.
Yeah, and as I always say to you, we're really, all of us voice actors, if I can just say for a moment, we
Yeah.
work in a booth, so
Yeah.
we're in a consolidated space, and it gets lonely. There's been talk depression in voiceover, and
Hmm.
there's always that, because you're working independently. But to
Yeah.
have somebody like yourself,
Oh,
reach out and sort of unite the community and provide us with that medium and that mechanism, it makes a big difference. So
I appreciate that. That
my
means a
heart
lot.
goes out to you.
I appreciate, and actually I'm making friends doing this. I'm actually going to go meet a fellow voice actor next week
Oh,
for coffee, tea, all that good stuff. So that means a lot when you say that, that
yeah.
keeps the engine going. You rock, man. Thanks for being on the
Oh,
show.
man. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure, man. Take care.
For more information about Aaron Bradley or to book him for a project, go to aaronvo.com.
Thanks for listening in on Behind the Audition podcast, made possible by Hilton Productions. If you need a male or female voiceover, contact us at hiltonproductions.com. Hilton Productions, let our voices do the selling.